Well, if you've joined me this long, obviously you've figured out that I'm playing Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 now. And I'm back to my roots. This is... Hang on a second. Let's turn that off. I can see it well enough. This would make it a little easier to talk. Not everybody understands the glorious sound of a Vario going up. Does make it a little harder to keep track of lift, but it'll be fine. So, 26 years ago, this is where I was flying a very similar airplane in real life in Kitzingen, Germany as a 8th, 9th, and 10th grader. And this looks just like it did way back then. Obviously, I can't see my feet in this airplane, but... And this isn't quite a Berg Falco 3, however, it is a very similar machine in every aspect of it. It looks exactly like it. It's a two-seater as well. I don't have a co-seat instructor back there like I did back then, but how cool is this, man? Now I am using the Sim Soaring Club presets and loggers and information from that community has been extremely helpful to get soaring working in Microsoft Flight Sim. Hats off to those guys for putting up a huge package of really good information and some really cool apps that really enhance the experience that I still have to figure out a lot of. Almost a cloud base here. I will say this, because of the sim, we can pretty much always have a good day. It wasn't this good often when I was flying here all those years ago. It was a lot of times we'd come off the winch and it was a 10-15 minute flight around the pattern, and that was about the extent of it on even on a decent day, because I was sharing the airplane with other students. So we had a limited time that we could fly per weekend. So the sim eliminates all that, obviously, and coming to it all these many years later, it's kind of really cool. And it's so cool that it's, you know, this well modeled. Now I will say this, let's circle back around here and I'll show you at the runway. So we didn't actually use the runway when I was flying there. We used the taxiway as our primary runway. Still going up. It's great. Schwanberg off the nose there. Actually get the ridge soar off that once or twice when the wind was just right. Wasn't often. And it's pretty low, so it's not fantastic. But if you see the runway down there that we took off from, we actually used the taxiway as our primary runway for the gliders because we ran the two cable winches like we took off with from the other end, so it was a lot easier to run that on the taxiway instead of impeding any larger traffic that may need to use the actual runway. Pretty cool. And with gliding, you do a lot of circling on these thermals, especially on flat land like this. You're just cloud surfing, basically. The creaking and everything sounds just like it did back then. It's so cool. And the biggest instrument you have is the wind speed and sound around you. It's fantastic experience in the sim so far. I haven't done any real long cross-country flights. I'm going to save most of that for the more modern gliders that are also available in the package. So far, only touching the freeware. I will likely do the payware add-ons because there's some really good ones that are suggested by the community. And they have some really good features, to be honest. And also because I was never given the opportunity to fly anything more performance than the Berg Falco 3, like this thing, old tube and fabric glider. I will absolutely be flying a Glassbird in Flight Sim here. That'll be in the next video. We'll go to some more entertaining scenery. But this is a really cool way to get back into. Let's just go ahead and go this way and stop circling for a moment so we don't get too dizzy. Enjoy some of the scenery a little bit. Used to be able to see the Schweinfurt from here when there was a big nuclear plant, but it's hard to tell where that's at. Almost due north of here. Big smokestacks that used to be out there, well above the field now at getting almost up to, what was that, 2,000 meters. I'm a bit rusty on my meters, altimeters, but this is exactly what I was flying with. And basically pattern altitude, if I remember right, was getting in the pattern at 200 meters. We got a ways to go for we need to do that. And actually, with this preset that we're using, we're still climbing up to cloud base here. We can probably do a pretty lengthy cross-country flight if we really wanted to. Not going to VFR fly this thing though. This was pretty much only used locally for the students that flew there, just like myself at the time. I was pretty young in high school at the time. And unfortunately, when I moved back to the U.S., I didn't have an opportunity to keep flying gliders because the closest place was, I think, 5 or 6 hours away. So that was the end of that gliding career. And I never really pursued it after that. So I did a lot of RC soaring. I mean, once you start flying gliders, you really don't leave it. It stays in your blood. It's such a really cool feeling. It's very different for a lot of power plane pilots. They don't quite until you do it, it's hard to explain. And coming to Microsoft Flight Sim from FSX, I skipped 2020 because it was really buggy, and I am on a pretty old computer. Some more lift there. I'm so used to hearing the Vario and doing this instead of looking at the Vario, but yeah, really cool. So here I am in Microsoft 2024. And so far, it's performing pretty good on my 1080 GTX. Obviously, I haven't done anything multiplayer yet. That'll probably be the true test. But yeah, I say it's quite a good flight here. Great weather. I mean, I've pretty much been on lift since I left the winch, which is really cool. With this many clouds, it'd be a lot of activity. But I do think we will aim to go land here. Let's crack the air brake. Start our descent here on long downwind. So my longest flight back then was a little over an hour. And that was limited only by the time that we had to share between, I think there was 6 of us at the time, students. So we had to share the airplane. My instructor wasn't very happy that we had to come down because it was a day like this. We could have stayed up for hours, which would have been really nice. That would have been good for the logbook and for the experience for sure. Unfortunately, I was never able to solo back then because I didn't speak German fluently, and that was a limiting factor. They wouldn't let me do that because I couldn't communicate with the ground and the other pilots correctly. So yeah, I understand it now, but back then I wasn't too happy, even though I had the hours to do solo. See if I can still land this thing halfway decent. I will not be using the taxiway, at least for the sim purposes, because when I do go to relaunch after the video, it won't, the winch isn't there, so I have to land on the main runway, which is fine. Gives me a little more room for error. I'm definitely rusty. Say they got the reflections right. On the right kind of lighting, this thing was a big glass bubble and it had a lot of reflections. Might be a little overdone, but it's not bad actually. Not too shabby for the first flight on this thing, first proper flight that I've done. Very cool. We can step outside and take a look at the airplane here that I'm flying. Yeah, very similar, very similar to the Berg Falcon 3 that I flew back then. Super cool. Appreciate you watching. If you want to see more of this, I think you won't have a choice. I'm going to be doing it anyway, so enjoy. Thanks for watching.